p.m. and I will call to order today's meeting of the Lancaster Select Board, Tuesday, January 3rd, 2023, here in the Nashaway Room. A reminder to all that this is being recorded and broadcast over Sterling-Lancaster Community TV. So before we begin, let's do a roll call. Ms. Turner, are you here?
I'm here.
You are. Mr. Allison, are you here?
Here.
Okay, and I am here as well. So the select board is all here and ready to roll at 6:01. So first item on the agenda is approval of minutes for our meeting of December 19th, 2022. I said that already.
Oh, I missed it.
Oh,
Thank you so much,
someone
Mr. Chairman.
should have had their phone in their hand. You would have got
All
that.
me.
I'll offer a motion to approve the minutes as offered, as printed.
Okay.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving the minutes of December 19th, 2022 indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, approved. We have no scheduled appearances, we have no board, committee, and department reports. We head straight to public comment period. As is typical, we go to folks in the room first. If you're interested in the room of speaking publicly, please make your way to the podium. If not, we'll go to folks with their hands up on the screen. And you are offered, D Hurley, you've got a clapping emoji in yours. I don't know if that's your way of raising your hand to speak or not, but I saw Carol Jackson's hand first, so there's no one in the room wishing to speak here. So Carol Jackson, you are allotted 3 minutes for public comment. And remember, folks, before you begin, Carol, reminder to folks participating in public comment that we are respectful to each other, that no direct attacks on anyone, that we maintain a certain decorum befitting the meeting that we're in, and that at the ruling of the chair, I could cease your comments if I believe that you are not abiding by our rules of decorum. So, with that, Carol, you have 3 minutes. State your name and address.
Hi, thank you. Carol Jackson, 40 Farnsworth Way. I have a couple of questions. I guess they're going to be statements because I'm guessing we'll get answers. Was a citizen's petition by the select board, or was it false advertising that the planning board's notification said the citizen's petition was
Carol,
by the select board?
Carol, I'm going to have to stop you there. So, first, you just suggested false advertising in your comment, which suggests a negative comment. So I will answer. The citizen's petition was exactly that, a citizen's petition. Keep going.
Yeah, but it stated it was by the select board. I'm just curious if the select board got the citizen's petition and the signatures and all of that.
It's a citizen's petition.
Okay. Yep. All right. And then it's concerning that the special town meeting, in the last meeting you said, you can't have it in Ottawa, it's not allowed, and can't have it outside the town. But the COVID guidelines were extended back in July to March of 2023, so it is
No, you can't.
allowed to have it in another town.
That's inaccurate, Carol, but we'll post about that later. But that's not accurate.
So, and also I have concerns, I myself cannot attend special town meeting, but I have concerns for the residents of Lancaster and their health, because there was quite a few issues from the last special town meeting, having it MRE and how jam-packed it was, and it's just, I don't know, the only word I can think of is a super spreader, so it's very concerning. And that's what I have. Thank you.
Thank you. And to Carol, thank you for your comments. And general public, we're going to be discussing the special town meeting and arrangements later in the meeting. So thank you for teeing that up for us. D. Hurley, you're next. Denise, you have 3 minutes. State your name and address. Denise, you got to unmute yourself. No?
I am trying to unmute.
There you go. 3 minutes, Denise.
I'm trying to start my video. I'll just go with the unmute.
There you go.
Okay. First of all, I want to wish everybody a Happy New Year.
Denise, name and address?
Oh, Denise Hurley, 102 Bowden Road.
Perfect, thank you.
I am so sorry.
That's okay, thank you. And Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year. Okay, just a couple of things going on in town that I'd like to mention to everyone. First of all, there is a open mic event this Friday at the community center. It starts at 6:30, and it's for anybody who wants to come out and perform. However you want to, instrument, spoken word, whatever. So I'm just letting people know that that's an event that's going on this Friday, January 6th, and it's a monthly event. So every Friday, first Friday of the month, we will be doing that. So if you have any questions, just holler, let me know. But if you want to join us, you can stop in or send me an email or whatever. But so that's going on. Second thing is we're putting together an art show for February 25th, Kaleidoscope of Arts at Lancaster. And again, we're looking for talented folks to apply and be part of the art show, and it can be both adults and children. So, and again, that's something that you can contact me, and I will send you a registration form. So that's all I got right now. Thanks very much.
Thank you, thanks Denise, appreciate it. Open mic night, Friday, 6:30 p.m. Community Center, and then a yard show next month, thank you.
You're welcome.
Next and only remaining hand up, Heather Lennon. Heather, how are you? State your name and your address. Oh, you're muted.
Okay.
There you
Can
go.
you hear me now?
Yep.
Yes. Okay, my name is Heather Lennon. I live at 294 Nicholas Drive in Lancaster, Massachusetts, 01523. And I also have a couple things I'd like to say. Number one, I'd like to give a special commendation and a shout out to a young man named Ike Kilburn. Ike Kilburn, if you have noticed over the last few days, has been working very diligently in the Middle Cemetery. He's working on phase 3 of removal of the hazardous trees there. And he's been working below the regular price that one might ask one to do out of love for the town. He has deep roots here in Lancaster, and he's done an exceptional job. So I just like everyone to be aware of that. I wish more people would step forward as he has to help the town improve the appearance of the cemeteries. Okay, and the second one is, I would like to find out if the select board has given any thought yet to establishing a committee to work on the celebration for the semi-quincentennial of the reading of the Declaration of Independence, which will come up in 2026, the 250th. It's been a long time since 1976, 50 years. So it's going to be a nationwide celebration. I'd like to see it town-wide, and I believe that the usual practice is for you folks to appoint a committee. So I'm just mentioning that as well. And that's all I have to say. So I hope you can maybe give a little feedback on that. Thank you.
Thanks, Heather. I can so I happen to be, I was appointed a year and a half ago to the Health and Wellness Council for America 250, which is the nation's organization working to celebrate the 250th. So I am intimately aware of the efforts to celebrate the 250. And I know that Governor Baker also appointed a state coordinator, as every state and territory is asked to do. And the Governor-elect Healy, I believe, is keeping that person in place. But you are right to flag that. I'm ashamed that we haven't thought of it sooner to get rolling on that. So I'll put that on the list of things to nag me about, Heather, but we will get something organized and appointed this springtime. Thank you. Okay, next, someone named Kathy. Go right ahead for 3 minutes, name and address, please.
Kathy Hughes, 80 Fire 11. Happy New Year to everyone. I was interested in trying to find out some information, and I don't actually know how to go about it, so I was hoping I could get some direction. I noticed that in the MOA agreement that was signed right before the last town meeting, that there were some things that I had concerns about, and I know some of those things went to town council. I don't know how to find out what the town council's advice was to the select board or to the town administrator. I assume that's in writing somewhere, and I also am aware at the cost to the town of asking for documents. So I was trying to find this out in a way that doesn't overburden the town, but I do feel it's important to have that information available to residents because we are in fact paying that legal bill. So if anyone could provide some information on that, that would be really helpful to me. Secondly, and this has to do with the town's budget, we're hearing that there's lots that we're going to be overspending this year.
Sorry, Kathy.
I also
Kathy, real quick, do we have a list of the things that you were looking for answers on? Where do you want to send that to us?
I'd like to know what the town council's opinion was on the arbitration rule.
All right, we don't publish legal opinions, but we can, if you want to shoot me an email, we can, you and I.
Well, I guess I'm wondering why that isn't available to the town if the town paid the bill.
We can certainly talk about that. That's a standard that no community can meet, to make every attorney-client conversation available to every human being in the geographic area.
Right. Well, it's surprising that any lawyer would recommend arbitration in that situation. So I'm surprised if our legal counsel gave that advice.
Okay.
Secondly, and I will send you an email. Thank you. Secondly, I guess I'm wondering what the town is doing about, and have they taken any cost-cutting measures and put into practice? Things such as, putting on a hiring freeze or doing furloughs for employees, because that's what would be a normal practice when someone is over budget for a year. So I'm just wondering if any of those things are being considered by the town, or what other cost-saving items are being considered by the town so that they don't run over budget this year. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Before I go to Tom, I can just say I do know that we're currently on budget. We are over budget for next year. And when Kate started, there was an issue with being over budget, and so she did exactly those things you just laid out. There was a hiring freeze, and they put spending freezes, and got caught up, and we moved forward. So, Tom, you are next. You have 3 minutes. Name and address, please.
Hi, thank you very much. My name's Tom Murray. I live at 156 Main Street, Lancaster, Massachusetts. First of all, I want to thank you all for the excellent work that you do on a continuous basis for administration and management of our town. We love living there. I've been in Lancaster for 22 years now, and I really enjoy it there. So thank you. I also want to thank you. I'm representing, I suppose, the Seventh-day Adventist faith community. I have a concern. The town has always, in the past, really been kind and generous with the Seventh-day Adventists in scheduling meetings, particularly for important events and votable items. As you know, and I'm kind of reading the signs around town on the front lawns. There's a meeting coming up on the 28th of January at 10 o'clock in the morning, and I think you folks are very aware of our hours of religious worship and observation, and that would be a conflict for us in this community. I should have numbers for you as to how many Seventh-day Adventists live in Lancaster and how that might affect things, but I just have I'm an administrator with the church. And I've gotten several calls, people saying, why is this happening, and what do we do? I don't know at this point. You folks have planned the meeting. There's advertisements out there. It may be too late to the dance. But I do just want to ask if you would to continue. You folks have been great with us. We've enjoyed your leadership. We really appreciate you. And in future meetings, if you could just keep that consideration for our people. We do have a lot of concern about things that happen in the town. I think this particular meeting is a very important meeting and a very important issue before the people. And I'd like our community to be able to weigh in on that. So again, I might be a little late to the dance. I think I'm too late to the dance on this one. But I want to just tell you, I appreciate you folks. And if you could continue with what we've had for many years in the past, that would be awesome.
I appreciate that, Tom. Thank you very much. Thank you. All right, seeing no more hands, public comment will come to a close. All right, town administrator report, where we will discuss some issues around, do we want to do that when we discuss the special town meeting in general? Or, sure. Yeah, why don't we just do that, and why don't we go to any budget process update and discussion you have, and then the fire department grant, and then we can go into the other piece.
Yep. So we have, I worked last week, as you can imagine, the week between Christmas and New Year's has actually always historically been my most productive because it's rather quiet. And so most of last week was spent on the budget. It is, I would say, 90% complete. I'm waiting for 7 department overview sheets so that before you get to what was requested and what will be recommended and sort of all of the information from there, that it's prefaced with, depending on the size of the department, either a 1 to a 3 page overview of the mission of that department, the organizational structure, what they do, what they did what are they doing this current year, and what are their plans for the following fiscal year. I suspect that that'll be done with at least the initial draft of that by the end of the month, and so I would like to know the board's will on whether you would like to have a hearing or a forum on that alone, or whether you would want that to be part of an agenda, and maybe it's one of the only agenda item of substance other than appointments, etc. And if you wanted that either January 30th, which is the 5th, it's an anomaly week because we don't have a meeting, but we could, but we don't have to, or whether you want to roll that into February. So,
What are the thoughts of my colleagues?
I'm good either way.
I'll defer to you.
I'm good either way.
And you?
I'm perfectly fine. I do think it's an important issue, and I think a standalone makes sense, or a meeting that we have very light agenda for. I don't know what we're looking at for the 17th for an agenda, and you won't be ready. It's really at the end of the month or early February.
and I think you're going to probably want some time to dissect it because it's well over 130 pages,
Why don't we take a look at,
as
Sure.
promised.
thank you. Why don't we take a look at what our agendas look like in February?
Okay.
And if we can do it as the big substantive chunk, great. If not, then we can find a date to have a separate meeting to discuss it. Because what I do think is very important, and I hope the citizens notice this, that for the last few months we have talked about the budget at every select board meeting, because if the budget isn't right, nothing's right. And so I think it's important to keep having that conversation. So does that make sense to everybody? Take a look at the February agendas, see if there's a date, pick it. My preference would be to do it on a date where people are used to either attending or watching, rather than a special date. So one of our meetings would be great. And Kate, you and I can figure that out?
Yep. That is
Fantastic.
fine.
Thank you. Fire department.
And I thought I saw, is the
Who are you
is
looking
Mike up there?
I
thought
don't see him. I see an iPhone now. I see 2 iPhones.
Chief Hansen, do you happen to be up there or no? No.
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, would you
He's
like
one of our
to would you like to give your good news, because it certainly is due to you and not me.
Yes, we received a grant from the Department of Fire Services for $10,000 and some change. And I applied for some new technology, thermal imaging cameras known as the Lunars. It is a more defined camera that shows us, our normal thermal cameras just show us heat, fire. This will show us actual edges. So if we're like crawling around in a building, you'll see a hole in the floor, you'll see the edge. So you'll know there's a floor or a hole. It'll also notify us of a firefighter down. They're all linked together through like Bluetooth. So every firefighter would be notified when one person goes down. And it also acts like a GPS locator to give us a better idea where that firefighter is. So those have been ordered and wait for them to come in. And then on top of that, we also received the SAFER grant again in the senior SAFE grant.
Nice. Well done. Thank you, Chief. Thank you for chasing that down and for getting those dollars. Much needed.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody else have anything? Any comments on the fire department grant? Otherwise, we can move into discussion of the special town meeting. We are cooking with gas. 6:20, we're on to section 7, which is just about when I jinx us on moving quickly.
I was gonna say, shouldn't say it.
So,
I think.
first is to review the town staff's plans and protocols for the special town meeting that is scheduled for Saturday, January 28th, 2023. And you are putting that memo up for folks. Great.
Yep, so.
You'll take us through it. Yes?
This was obviously not in the packet because last week there was quite a few key players out, but today we had a really great meeting, and I'm told the first of its kind, which is wonderful, with all of the relevant department managers, division managers, the sound engineer for Sterling-Lancaster Television, and then the people who work for Sterling-Lancaster Television to kind of get together and understand what we're looking at. I know that a lot of people have said that the last town meeting wasn't their favorite town meeting. I think they've used other language beside that, but what I can say, whether it matters or not, is that maybe the voting wasn't the way that it should go, but there were a lot of other things and a lot of other actions that took place to make sure that every room could see and hear one another. That has not happened yet. And in the past, people were told that if they needed to speak, they had to leave the extra rooms and come in, and we weren't doing that. We were doing things more consistent with the Mass General Law on open town meetings. So we are continuing with those. We also had a lot of provisions in place, both for people who identify and called regarding disabilities, and also for many who do not. And so I think that just based on some feedback that we got, perhaps what we have done in the past wasn't known, and so that's on us to make sure people know. And some of it didn't work very well. So right now, town meeting on the 28th will be 6 rooms total. The cafeteria, the gym in Mary Rowlandson, the cafeteria in total, so both sides, the elementary and middle school side, the gymnasium at the middle school, and then the library. What you can see here is that we will have audio and visual two-way communication to all rooms with the exception of the gymnasium in room D. We have a lot of limitations regarding bandwidth in that building, 1, and 2, the distance between the hub, which is essentially the control center at the auditorium, the distance between that and the gymnasium is too great, even if we were to go through the band room and a few others. So we learned that today, and so we can have audio two-way, which is all that's required. And so we don't have a whole lot of time to fix that now, but if we decide that that's something that works and we want to utilize it in the future, we'll have to spend some money to expand on, our cabling, et cetera, but it could be something that we do. So right now, general admission, as we'll call it, is the auditorium, gymnasium, cafeteria. The auditorium will have the first row saved for folks who require hearing accessible in row 1. We are in the process of getting at least one American Sign Language interpreter. Last time we had 2. We also had somebody who had English as a second language, and so we had another individual that was there that we saved that was translating next to the person hearing and then translating. So we're planning on continuing with those services. Those services will be almost exclusively in the auditorium, so if persons are in need of that's where we have them go. The gymnasium, we're going to be setting up 82 chairs. We'll have the bleachers out. We won't hit capacity in either of those rooms.
82 chairs on top of the bleachers.
On top of the bleachers, correct. The Hope would have them in rows. The cafeteria will have tables and chairs from that, and standing room, same thing with the other side of the cafeteria. Those are technically going to be 2 different rooms because the audio feedback was such that there was a lot of ringing between the 2. And so we will need to close the divider between the 2, but I mean, people can traverse from one side to the other. But again, we'll have that closed for audio purposes. The gymnasium is our new addition. It is going to consist of about 40 plus or minus folding chairs. That's the largest room in both buildings. It has a capacity of over 780. We are able to figure that on the floor we can distance about 70 chairs at a 10-foot radius between one another, and then we can also utilize the bleachers if need be. That is for social distancing. That I'll talk about a little bit later about the ins and outs of that, but certainly that is going to be a mask required, separate door in and out, separate parking area, separate town clerk check-in staff, separate officer that's there, separate deputy moderator. The timelines for that morning.
The library.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. And the library will be for childcare. There's no reason for audiovisual link. The recreation staff will be running that again, same as last time, with National Honor Society students and some other volunteers. And childcare will be required. You sign your child in, you sign your child out with a photo ID, parent or guardian. And so we'll have some activities, perhaps a movie, etc. The television and certain town staff will arrive around 6 a.m. Other secondary staff and volunteers arrive at 7. The registrars and volunteers arrive at 8. The childcare workers at 8 as well, and the doors for check-in at 8:30. We have asked all town volunteers and staff to park at the police and fire station and walk, and so that will free up probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 35 spaces. So I think that would be helpful. There'll be a check-in at 3 locations, at the main entrance of the elementary school, the main entrance of the middle school, and then the back side of the building, which is the entrance to the middle school gymnasium door, and that will only be for those who are utilizing room D. You come through a separate vestibule, and there is another dividing door that you will obviously be able to get out of because of egress, but no one would be able to enter in there from the general public.
And just to clarify, that you basically approach the building, take that first right, go all the way around where the basketball courts are and where the recycling stuff is, but stop short there, and that's where that entrance is.
Reserve spots out back for that.
There's a map for that.
There's a map, of course there is.
So, excuse my rudimentary map, I had to use paint because, again, we just decided this afternoon, so it'll look better when we go to publicize this. But effectively, obviously, this is Main Street, this is the entrance. The red dots are officers and other crowd management volunteers. The green is for anybody that is going to be utilizing D. And after we have those persons that have registered and receive a parking pass for that, anybody that associates with having limited mobility issues. This blue is going to be reserved for all ADA parking, but that is for folks that have ADA parking placards on their vehicles. There's about 40. This spot here, these are the check-in spots, obviously MRE. This is the middle school. This is the check-in spot in the back, again, separate entrance for use with D. This smiley face is a drop-off for other folks with mobility issues, seniors, Really, we're not saying for folks to just drop off if they are able-bodied and able to wait, but those who might need a little bit less time, a little bit less walking distance. One of the other things is that there will be a greeter here, or a number of greeters. If the person is a senior, or the person has a complication, a disability, some reason that they need to be moved to the front of the line, that greeter will help them to navigate to the front of this line. Once their companion or companions park, they're able to find one of the volunteers, and the volunteer will bring them to that same line, so we can hopefully get persons that were in the same car back together again. All volunteers will be issued either a bright yellow or safety orange vest, so if they are not in police or EMT/fire uniforms, they'll be easily identifiable.
Can I ask a question? Every one of those stars, any citizen who goes in them, they're set for specific purposes, but if someone goes in the back, because they have limited mobility, there's going to be a full registrar's binder of every,
Yes, anybody can check in, but this one in the back is reserved for persons, and I'll go through that, but persons who have...
Anybody can go there, but they're reserved for particular purposes.
Correct, and that isn't an in and out, I mean, you can get in and out through that door, but you're not going to be able to access the rest of the building from that, unless obviously there was an emergency. So ADA parking is located within the entire front row nearest the school. The rear of the building is reserved for those who have prearranged accommodations, and will be using room D for town meeting. It may also be used, if available, with those for limited mobility and other physical needs, but priority parking will be given to those who have prearranged accommodations. So, for example, if 10 people have arranged and have a reasonable accommodation, and that's deemed reasonable by the town, they will be given a parking pass, and so 10 spots then would be saved before any others would be given out. The passenger drop-off area, like I said, a volunteer can escort the individual or individuals. Overflow parking, should there be snow or the vehicle volume exceeds the levels allowed at the school campus, is located along Main Street, the one side of Brazo Lane, both sides of Creamery Road, and parking will be available within the child care parking lot center, also on Creamery Road. And the MART van will be accessible to shuttle those from the overflow parking areas, with priority given to seniors and persons with small children or limited mobility. As far as staffing, police officers will be present at assigned parking entrances and other crowd control matters. The chief is here if you have any questions regarding that. When the meeting is called to order, at least one officer will be located in each of the 5 voter rooms, and officers will oversee the ballot vote, the collection, and then basically escort the town clerk with the collection boxes back to the main auditorium where they'll be counted. The boxes are locking ballot boxes, effectively. We ordered them, they're coming, they have a lock and key, they're tamper-proof, and will be kept in this building until they're brought over the morning of. So the moderator will preside over the dealings in the auditorium, and he shall appoint 4 additional moderators. He and the clerk are working on that. Childcare staff will be in the middle school library, overseen by our recreation coordinator. Children have to be signed in and out. Volunteers provided with the vest. So the other logistics, votes relative to Article 1 shall be taken by a paper ballot or secret ballot. The ballots are provided to each person upon check-in. But we are going to be clear that there will be no additional ballots provided for anyone who loses there. So it's incumbent upon the person to put it in a safe place. And there will only be 1 ballot per person. There will be a number of parameters that will be put in place, including numbering and QR codes, to ensure that every person gets just 1 ballot. Once a motion is made and the vote is called for, each person remains in the room that they're in, and they transfer their ballot to the locked ballot box, which will be in the hands of one of the clerks or their staff. And the box is obviously also overseen by a uniformed officer. When the voting has concluded and all the votes are collected, the clerk and at least one uniformed officer will escort all 5 boxes to the auditorium to be counted. The registrars will meet the clerk at that location to assist in the counting. And at the conclusion of the meeting, we plan to make an announcement asking that all members remain seated or standing in their locations and invite those with limited mobilities and senior citizens to exit first. We expect a large attendance, and that can be really overwhelming for folks to have to navigate. And then as far as accommodations, we obviously are very open and committed to ensuring that everybody who wishes to participate can do so. We are working with the Mass Attorney General's office, the Office Commission on Disability. And so individual requests for reasonable accommodations are individual, they're confidential, they could be made to me. I have received a couple, but if anybody has any individual requests, questions, concerns, they're free to email me, to give me a phone call. I would ask that we really need all accommodation requests by January 17th, and this is to ensure for things like I talked about, ASL, sign language, interpreters, et cetera, that we have enough time to not only be able to contract with these folks that do it, but ensure that we have enough resources for that. Certainly we would take requests after that, but we can't guarantee that we would be able to meet those requests.
Okay.
I realize that was a very information. So.
I've been on many calls about this, so I have no questions, but I yield to my colleagues. Jason?
That was overwhelming. Thank you.
You almost just spit this right out.
It's always positive when using a maybe not ideal situation to learn and grow, and that's clearly happened here, so thank you.
Sure. Yeah.
Thank you.
So lots of great improvements. I think we all learned from, I'll call it the debacle, but I know there was
We're
lots of,
supposed to be positive. Okay.
that was positive, considering that, I was gonna say. And it sounds like a much better plan. The couple of questions is, the auditorium is is it our traditional room that we've used? It's also much more comfortable. When you called gymnasium room D, I don't know what is the capacity of the auditorium? It's a lot less.
Auditorium is
353, give or take.
You've been doing your homework.
somewhere there.
So, given the fact that 780 is the bigger room, should we use that? Have you considered using that as our primary room with the overflow? Because people obviously want to be included in the primary room.
Sure. You want, yeah. So the idea, yes, but the short answer is yes, we did. The longer answer is what I described at the beginning, which is the connection hub is in the auditorium. And so we are unable to obtain a visual so that it can be on television and linked to all the other rooms with the distance from that hub to the middle school gymnasium. So it would be audio only. And that is less than ideal. The other is that we are trying to have a room that is more or less dedicated to folks who either wish to or may have to socially distance for whatever reason. And the idea of using the room with the largest square footage seemed best. Now that said, we plan to have an after event meeting because the ability to have the cords reach and do that is, while it's not easy, that would be more obtainable. But I think we want to see how room D is utilized for the other, because it's difficult to socially distance folks without a separate entrance, and so that probably couldn't be the auditorium, because we would look for a separate entrance in and out. And it definitely couldn't be the cafeteria, so it would perhaps have to be the the elementary school gymnasium. So we might switch the two, but I just don't think we're gonna do it this time.
Okay, so one of the other things that I noticed in that, let me think, wonderful, I don't know, in the past town meeting was I think one of the biggest frustrations for people, crowding of course, and parking, yes, but the biggest one came with the voting. So we have, or had 400 clickers, I think, not enough to satisfy everybody. But when
We
they,
don't have 400, by the way.
how many do we have?
They purchased 236.
Okay. So when they purchased the system, it was an expensive thing, and I know it was CARES, and it was a big discussion with us about should we allow for this, and when they did work down on the fairgrounds, it was very positively received by people because it was a great system. And I think it could be a really great way to expedite and take off some of the edges. Now, obviously, 236, if we're expecting anything comparable to 800, there's a big barrier there. The sales pitch at the time was that we could borrow or rent, and I know other communities have them. It's not a popular time for town meetings. Is that something that we've explored or could do or should do?
Yep, so I brought this up last time too. It isn't just about the clickers, it's about the receiver. And it needs to have one receiver with someone who can program it and receive that information for each room. So you essentially have systems that are not hooked to one another. So you would have 5 separate receivers with only clickers for that room. It becomes complicated if somebody takes their clicker, has it in their pocket, goes to use the restroom, that clicker picks up the signal from the auditorium, they come out of the restroom, it loses that signal and goes back into the gym. So if in fact what we plan to do is to continue to have town meeting in a multitude of rooms, I believe that we should explore having that company come back out and talk to us about a more robust receiving system. Because right now, it would imagine that each room has its own Wi-Fi address. So if you walk out of one room, your phone invariably would pick up another Wi-Fi. But then it drops it when you walk back into the other room. Or it doesn't pick it up at all,
Yeah.
and so it doesn't show up.
I don't know how it was done on the fairgrounds. Obviously, people were
It
dispersed.
was one area. It was
Yes,
one receiver.
It was one, yeah, I know, one
With-
area.
without
and it was-
cinder
and-
blocks.
and it was-
So
right,
it's cinder
and it was-
block walls
I understand.
with no Wi-Fi.
Right.
So
I had
it-
trouble with Wi-Fi here, so I understand that.
Well, but that's even worse because it's essentially is trying to have a system that relies on radio frequency to traverse cement walls with no Wi-Fi signal.
Okay. Well, we have done paper ballots in the past, similar to this, that you got when you came in and you just rip them in half or something, or cut them in half, but yes or no. So I know it can work. It was just this technology we invested in is great if it works.
Admittedly, I was not here to hear the
Right.
sales pitch.
Those are in the before times.
I would have asked the
So-
question that I just said to you because in other communities I've worked, we ran into this same problem.
Yeah, well, trust me, we asked it, and that was why it's difficult for, I think, both people who were listening then and us, and the people who enjoyed it so much
What did they
to
say?
hear that it could be done, because at that time, we were concerned about outdoor time. We had, everything, COVID was all up in the air. We didn't know where we were gonna be.
Okay, so
how
it could be done outside, but did they say it could be done inside?
Well, at the time, yeah, we were considering inside town meetings with social distancing. And then the whole world of outdoor town meetings came up. So it was my understanding that it could be.
And the company said that? Because
I
if
guess-
that's the case,
That's
we
my
should go back to the company.
Yeah, I would just say
I
we're
think we
having a
should.
conversation, asking a lot of questions for a company who's not here. So we
No,
definitely should drill in.
well,
Yeah,
obviously, so we have to explore, that's what
Yeah.
this is about, this
Right.
conversation, yeah.
Well, I mean, I just want to make sure that we're set on the
Well,
plans
and
for
we
this
have,
coming
and we
town
have the
meeting.
tapes too, from where we can go
That's
back,
right.
as all kinds of
So you can
things
go back
we
if you'd
do.
like. I just wanted to discuss the item on the agenda, which is this town meeting.
And we are, Steve, this is having clickers would be a big benefit to this
But
town meeting.
we're technologically incapable of having the clickers for this town
I
meeting.
understand that, and I know this was before, the discussion was before you came along, not before I was on, so it was something that I would think people would look forward to if we can make it work, and I do believe they could, but
Did they say they
It would
could
be
be
benefit.
used, were you on the board? That it could be used in?
I don't remember any of those conversations.
Regardless,
So-
I mean, it's not part of the plan. So
right,
we're discussing it. The plan as it exists has been developed, by the way, in incredible detail with all the town staff and department heads, so we appreciate that great work.
the other critique that I heard when I was there was that there was QR codes, which are great for people to look at and advance the slides and so on, but my understanding is that there wasn't enough capacity, there
Well, there
wasn't
was no
enough.
Wi-Fi and no cell service.
No, it
yeah.
wasn't, there wasn't enough, there weren't enough.
There's no Wi-Fi in that
No,
building.
that was the
This was
issue.
in the auditorium,
Yeah,
Still no Wi-Fi.
yeah, people,
and they said they didn't have enough, it was an issue of quantity, not.
every person who came up
not
to me
connection.
said the only issue was that they couldn't actually get to the internet. We had, I think, 1,000 of
So
them
then I must have
printed.
misunderstood you, because I
Yeah.
thought you said the numbers were limited on how many.
So those QR codes it would be great if
We're
someone
well
could get on.
intentioned, yeah.
But there was some other reasons to have that, and one of them was to prevent the ability to tamper with the ballot. So
But
it's
this is
great
the-
if people.
I think this
can-
was the informational QR code.
The information for
The
the
one with the
slides.
slides.
For the slides,
Oh.
and people were
Okay,
saying,
yeah.
I see.
people were saying they
Yeah.
couldn't get back
We're not
on
gonna
it.
have one of those this
And
time,
we're not.
so we're all set.
Okay, so my understanding
Yeah.
was just that there was a capacity
No, yeah,
limit
yeah.
on the number of people who.
Yeah, and I understood, the one thing I'd heard was, which I heard on the way out, somebody said, hey, I got this thing, it's a great idea. I was like, oh, great, thanks. It wasn't my idea. And he said, but there's no cell service. And I was like, that's a very good point. I hadn't even thought of it the entire meeting, so, well-intentioned. And if we had service or Wi-Fi, it would have been great.
Okay. And so, last thing is, and I understand and I support the will of the board. I know I was in the minority on voting against this, not against the spirit of the meeting, because I think that needs to go on, but I thought that the time choice was poor, given the letters and the comments, and just the discussion of people that we are disenfranchising, the Seventh-day Adventists, the Jewish population, and others, especially having it at 10 a.m. because that's right during services. So I know there's some other time frames on here that we've looked at. Even Sunday morning as a snow date. We have to be realistic and have a snow date. That's
We have two
good
snow
planning.
options. We have
Good
two snow
planning, and I get
options.
that.
Not just one.
Right, but I just think we're sort of being tone deaf to those in the community, so I don't
That's-
know if there's a will to change this before we publish the warrant.
So I will say, I think I'm a little bit bothered by tone deaf, because it's not something we did without thinking.
No, I know, we discussed it.
But I know, but the suggestion of tone deaf seems as if we bumfuddled our way into picking a time. It was dependent, there are just as many time slots and days in the week as there are groups who will tell you that it's a bad time to do something. I have heard for decades the push to have town meetings on Saturdays, and I have always said, geez, it doesn't seem to make sense. To me, the big push for this meeting by a massive citizens petition was to get the meeting done. To me, a Saturday date, it's not ideal, but it is the date and time that maximizes the participation of as many families here in the town as possible. So it was not ham-handed, it was not bumfuzzled, it was not,
No, I wasn't suggesting that. But I do think it does, I think it does
but
not.
I also don't think I don't, suggesting tone deafness suggests that there was no consideration given in the,
I do, I think we're disenfranchising several religious communities among.
we
among
can't,
other
we,
things.
I've had to say this many times, we cannot make a decision here for town government based on religion.
I know that, Steve.
We just can't do it.
But you understand that there are many communities, we just got through celebrating Christmas, which was a legal holiday in Christian, and the country does. Many school districts honor, if they have a critical mass, honor Rosh Hashanah, or Yom
Sure.
Kippur, or some other things. So
Sure.
there is often an influence on government for religious considerations. We're a Judeo-Christian, organization, so,
We are
but
not a
there's others.
Judeo-Christian organization. We
The
are-
government was built on.
No, it
we
was
can
not.
get into-
No, it was built on the freedom of religion. It is literally
That is
Amendment
true.
1.
That is
So
true.
don't say it was, they
No, we
literally,
have- we have-
they put in the Constitution that there's a separation of church and state. So
Right,
don't,
I
I just don't
understand.
want you to lead people along that there's a Judeo-Christian foundation for our government, because there's not.
I appreciate that. I am not a particularly religious person, so this does not affect me personally. This is about our constituents.
Understood.
And our constituents have spoken in writing today, verbally, and things, expressing their desire to do that. I think we can meet the same goals and have families on a Sunday afternoon, for example.
Just so you know, I have heard from just as many folks because we've received a number of letters. I, throughout my time on this board, have heard from dozens and dozens of folks not understanding why we don't have meetings on Saturdays. So just as many as we've heard, I've heard, yes, sorry,
It's
we've been going
cool.
back and forth, sorry.
So, I find this conversation
Enlightening?
not fruitful.
Yes.
And the reason for that is there is no date that will be great for everyone. So whatever date we choose will be undesirable for some set of residents. So the notion that a choice that we're making is not thinking about this set or that set, I just find silly. Because if you go back to that meeting, we spent a considerable amount of time trying to find a date that was right, and there are no perfect dates. And as we've said 1,000 times, I think Steve, you said 2,000 times, this is a citizen's petition. We have to move within the spirit of the law, and we're doing the best that we can, and it will not be perfect for all residents. It is an impossible solution. So to the residents listening, to my fellow board members, I believe we're doing the best that we can. I believe that this issue is settled. I do not believe there is a motion on the table, and I'd like to move on.
There is not.
There's not.
There is
Cool.
not.
Okay,
And,
so, so if we can move, are we all set on the plans and protocols for the special town meeting section of the agenda?
plans look great, thank you.
All right. Next is review the draft town meeting warrant article, which you all have.
Do you want to go over the nominations?
Excuse me? Oh, sure, yes, actually, before we do that, so, we have had, several conversations with, the Mass Office of Disability and the Mass Attorney General's Office about reasonable accommodations. We, as we always do as a town, will be compliant with the Americans with Disabilities Act to make sure that folks, are accommodated for. There are a number of requests that are coming in to the town hall. Again, get them in by January 17th. That doesn't foreclose any opportunity, but it's easiest for us to tackle them if they're in by the 17th. There is a lot that is already being done relative to accommodations. We actually went through it chapter and verse with the Attorney General's Office and the Mass Office of Disability today on the call, just to make sure that we were going as far as humanly possible and above the mandates. And so I think we have a very clear sense of where we're gonna head. If, just so folks understand, and I think Kate alluded to this, if accommodation requests come in, they get vetted through a conversation between our ADA coordinators and the citizen. Again, it remains private. If however, we'll use one example, a citizen reached out, did refuse to give their name and asked an accommodation, that does not get accommodated. So meet us halfway on this, and we'll be able to accommodate as many folks as we can. It is our responsibility as a select board and town to comply with the Americans with Disabilities Act, and we will be doing that and feel confident in the plan that we have for that moving forward. Do you have any questions?
No?
Awesome. Okay, keep going.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
So review of the draft
so-
town meeting warrant.
So the draft town meeting warrant was simply that, most notably, there was no signature area in it, because I was still working on that. But I wanted to get something into the packet, and it was just me in the office last week. And in addition, I edited the language somewhat after the conversation today. And we were able to go over this with council. A date relative to the proposed plan is not needed, not necessarily needed if it's a select board sponsored warrant article. And so the date that you see on here, 8/31/22, is the still correct date. This is the same map that was in the last.
And you're saying that simply because there was another date also on another version, so just to clarify.
The last
for folks,
version was
yeah,
the latest project narrative that was also sent in. It's the,
That's at 11/22. The
Correct.
date is not relevant for the
Yep.
purposes of the warrant.
right, so there was a bunch of different, recommendations that council said that we could if we wanted to say, also submitted on XYZ, and it just seemed to get complicated and muddy the water, so we just stuck with the date of the first plan.
Thank you.
So this draft that I have, I don't know which one, because I had it. you gave me-
Wait, so I gave you a new one. I told you that one was not
Right,
good.
right.
The
Oh,
one I
okay.
handed
So
you.
throw that away.
Okay. Any questions about the draft town meeting warrant article? We've seen it ad nauseum. And as is the case, of course, on the first page, it does discuss one more time our efforts to accommodate and comply with the ADA. On the warrant for the special town meeting, it says the date, the time, has the constable part, the greetings, that states the location and the time again, has Article 1, which is the enterprise rezone, sponsored by the select board. It has a spot for select board recommendation, planning board recommendation, and then you are directed to serve this warrant by posting up attested copies thereof at the South Lancaster Post Office, Center Post Office, 5th Meeting House, and the Prescott Building in said town 14 days at least before the time for holding said meeting. Thereof fail not, and make due return of the warrant with your doings thereon to the town clerk at the time and place of meeting
Grammarly
aforesaid.
hates that sentence.
I bet it does. I bet there's a lot of squiggles on your computer when you see
So
that sentence.
I move
Yes.
to open the warrant for special town meeting January 20th, 2023.
And insert,
And insert this article.
Which would be Article 1.
which will be Article 1.
Article 1.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there a discussion on the motion to open the special town meeting warrant and insert this article as Article 1?
Not on that. Will we have the opportunity to discuss the article or anything?
To discuss the article
Well, no, I just
itself?
had, I had some
We
questions.
will have
so
time
just
between
exercise.
now and January 28th, yeah,
Well,
lots
no,
of
no,
it.
no,
Yeah.
okay, I'll see.
I mean, it's not gonna,
No,
you mean
we
to
can
alter
do
it between now
No,
and
no,
then?
no,
Yeah,
I
okay.
wasn't
So,
gonna alter- I wasn't
that's
gonna
fine,
alter.
yes, we can have discussion on that after we,
Okay.
yeah. So the motion is to open the special town meeting warrant and insert this attached warrant article as Article 1 for January 28th.
Second.
Hearing no, you already seconded, hearing no discussions,
Oh,
all in
great.
favor?
Hi.
Aye. Okay,
So
now,
we inserted this,
We
now
inserted
we
this.
need to close it?
yes,
And that's procedurally correct, so I move to close the warrant for special town meeting January 28th, 2023.
Second.
any discussion on the closing of the warrant?
So procedurally, this is everything? Awesome.
Any discussion on the closing?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, it is closed. Now, would you like to, do you have a comment you want to make on the
That's it.
actual article?
Sure, I don't know when the best time, but yeah, is that,
We can do it now, we can do it at the end when we do new business or whatever. It's entirely up to you.
you know what, why don't we just, because we're on such a roll.
We are.
I'll save everything for new business, how's that?
Sounds fantastic, thank you. Review earth removal renewal permit and approval guidelines. Kate?
Yeah, so this was a question that was brought up by a couple of citizens, and then I know, Alex, you had mentioned something about this too, so I thought it might be good to just bring it up on the record. So the special permit guidelines that are in MGL dictate that if the board, who is the authority to grant said special permits, is a three-member board, that the vote has to be unanimous. And so there was a thought that the vote that was taken at the select board meeting probably 2 months ago now, may have been in error. So we've been able to reach out both to council and the AG's office, because my understanding was that was not what the matter is. And you don't need a consistent, or I'm sorry, unanimous vote for renewal. And that is true. You do not need a unanimous vote for renewal, only the initial granting. So we have that from.
Perfect.
So I just wanted to be clear on that, yes?
Yes.
So, just to be clear, a couple residents didn't, I'm gonna paraphrase here, a couple residents didn't believe you. So now we have to go spend lawyer money to go get you to be proved right. Is that what happened? Because it'd probably just be a lot cheaper just to believe you, right?
Well, in this instance, yes, but I mean, I don't really know how to answer that.
I don't think it's a question designed for you to answer.
Yeah,
I just think we should really just be trusting in our resources, and I think that's good.
Yeah,
You know.
agreed.
so Jason, or through the chair.
Yes.
So, in fairness, there was no requirement for us to go to legal counsel or spend a penny, but if Kate feels that she wants to do so, we have granted her that ability and authority to do so. There's also other resources that she has used, and we can use too. There's state resources, AGL, the AG's office and others. And the other thing is, my understanding is this was, our earth removal bylaws is a local bylaw. It does refer back to some other laws and so on too, but we should, I think, be able to use prudently town council when we want to. Other committees, your committee?
I would strike when we need to, I would say when we need to.
When we need to, right. And I'm not casting aspersions because I think you should have done it. The MOU committee used a lot of town council money.
How much did it use?
I don't have the exact numbers, but we can ask that.
But it's a lot.
I'll ask that to Kate, and we'll get a number for you to answer you. So the point is, people should be able to, if we feel that our administrator, or if our administrator feels she wants to do so, we should
I don't
support
think
that.
I don't want to put words in the mouth. I don't think he was saying that Kate misused
I understand what he's saying.
council's dollars,
I think we all do.
yeah.
So,
So, thank you for that clarification. Now we all know it. And we have that information right here moving forward. All right. The remaining items on the agenda are discuss resident trespass complaint that was tabled from the last meeting, appointment to the Disability Commission, and then just some communications and ongoing projects. So, discuss resident trespass complaint.
you were going to speak to the chair.
I
and come back to
was,
us.
and I haven't heard back from him. That's not true. We played a fantastic, and I see him on here. I left you another message, Tom. Tom and I have played a fantastic game of tag over the holidays. So we have not had a chance to speak, but we've left each other both long and very friendly voicemails, which is nice, but I have not had a chance to speak with him yet.
Would you like to table it again, or do you want to?
It's the will of the board.
Well, it's up to you if
Yeah.
you feel prepared to discuss it, but,
I mean, I'd still like to have a conversation with him prior to discussing it, but,
okay. So if you would like to, then I'll offer a motion, I'll offer a motion to table until you're able to discuss it with him.
it's fantastic. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. So tabled to the,
Aye.
aye. Aye, got it, sorry, thank you. Thank you for electing me. Tom, we will talk tomorrow, I'm sure. Next item on the agenda is appointment, Commission on Disability, Eugene Gino Brazo, term to expire, on another page, listen, term to expire, ...
Do you know when it's supposed to expire?
I believe it would be 2024, 2-year. Would you like me to check on that?
Could
I
you?
don't know why it,
Is it
Do we want
critical that we
it-
appoint him
so-
tonight?
Do we want to table it and give you a chance to?
yeah, I
Yeah.
don't think
Let me
so. I
just
don't.
check in our packet. I don't know if it says.
Yeah, I'm looking at the packet
I
right now.
see
It
the
says-
letter, I saw the letter, but it didn't have a
Yeah,
term in
Michael
it.
Q's letter does not have
Have a date,
You just had the request from the Commission on Disability, they nominated
right.
him.
All right, so unless, I mean,
It
I don't
is-
see Mike on here.
Mike or Gino?
Is Gino on here? Mike?
So
I
if it's
don't
not
see-
critical,
it's
I
not
know he
critical,
can
then we
still
should
go.
table it, yeah.
He could still encourage to go to the meeting.
Yeah,
and
he should go to the
participate.
meeting and participate, but not vote as a commission member until we get that clarified. Is there a motion to table the appointment until our next
So
meeting? Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, fantastic. Next, communications, we have our next select board hybrid meeting, where we'll be discussing an appointment to the Disability Commission. That much I know. It'll be held on Tuesday, January 17th, 2023 at 6 PM. right here in this building or on a computer or television near you. It is on a Tuesday again due to the Martin Luther King Jr. holiday on Monday the 16th. In case you missed it, the special town meeting will be held on Saturday, January 28th, 2023 at 10 a.m. at the Mary Williamson Elementary School. Doors open at 8:30. And now we are on to ongoing projects. Did you want to, Lancaster Recycling Center, does anyone have an update on that, or do we?
That's in the packet.
Yeah, so you asked for more information and I put a memo in the packet and it was dated December 29th and it details basically the information you asked for, which is effectively that the expenses to run the recycling operation have varied from year to year. But the center is open 2 days a month. At its height, it was open more than 4 times that. So in 18, the highest expenses were $15,700. Yeah, last year's expenses were $6,300, markedly less because they were only open twice a month. The fiscal 23 number seen here is $3,650, but it's only reflective of year to date, which is 5.5 months at the time of writing this. So should the board choose to supplement the recycling operation in FY24, that amount should be somewhere between $6,000 and $9,500. Well, I think that it is an excellent endeavor, and it's an important piece, and it certainly is, great. I guess just to mirror some of the comments that were made during public comment about things that need to be cut versus not cut. I mean, this was not included in the budget outlines, but it certainly can be because they're not done yet. I just am concerned that there are a lot of other great programs that we are not funding, not because we don't want to, but because we have to be very selective.
Conservation's not free.
Perhaps we, go ahead.
Do you know who the chair is of the recycling committee?
So I was just going to suggest that perhaps we have them come in and talk to
Yeah.
us about
So they came
their
in and
plans.
talked to Cheryl and I, and what I said was that I was gonna come to you all. I do know her name, I'm sorry.
Is it Kathy Sue?
Is she, hello?
Um,
Is someone on the call?
Somebody's trying to say something, I guess, I'm not sure who.
That's okay.
I know Kathy Suits is involved, I know other people who have volunteered, they've had the honor of having some incredibly dedicated volunteers, but whoever we need to discuss it with, I think obviously it's difficult to put this burden, especially if it's something that's going to continue with all projections to cost us a lot of money, but it's very worthwhile.
Well, she also said they're having a very hard time getting volunteers, and
Sure.
that, attendance has dropped off, so.
Yeah, and I understand that too. I think whether one of us goes as a liaison to talk to them, they don't meet regularly, or whether we.
So I'm just trying to
Have them come
understand
in.
respectfully, going to accomplish, because they did come to me. I feel badly not having an answer again, because they did come to me and they met with us.
Is the question to include them in the FY24 budget or
Right.
to fix their budget problem this year?
We cannot fix their budget
Right.
problem this year, we
That's
have
fine.
no appropriation.
Then
But
I-
it would be
then-
to include,
Then my recommendation would be, if the board approves, is to at least put it into the budget calculations and we can have it as a conversation.
okay?
We can't, it is money, conservation costs money, we appreciate that. But if it's about the FY24, we're having a conversation about what our budgets, our vision and value statements and priority statements. So as we're discussing our budget, we should at least have that on the table as a potential expense, would be my suggestion.
I agree with you. Wow.
Oh my God.
So the only question for that
Truly.
is, shall we bring forth all of the other ones that we didn't fund?
No, so the questions I would.
Some of those were made not at the board table,
Those,
but
the capital expenses, you mean?
no, operational.
Well, no, I mean, yeah.
Well, no, if another board, so what you're saying is, in fairness, because we're singling out this one because you brought it to our attention and they had to stop midstream, to be fair to the others,
But,
should they have
what
their
do you
chance to?
Well, there's quite a few others, like the Fairfield one that was from Recreation. There was one from the Reuse Committee. There was one from the Commission on Disability that wasn't just for the printing of the book, but some other expenses. There's needs from historical that were brought forward.
Well, I would say there was
I
a,
think they should come forward. I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
no, go ahead.
No, I would just say yes, I think they should have an opportunity to.
I feel like we're at a point in the budget process where we're at, and if they're not in the process at this point, but
I don't expect that we're going to just say, throw the budget out and you can do this, but I think people will have, if they feel strongly and want to come to the board, should have the opportunity. That's all. In the case of the recycling, I understand what we're all saying is that we haven't budgeted for it, we can't, but we think it's a high priority. My question to them would be things like, do you know how other communities do it? For example, I spoke about how we didn't get a grant and other towns did. They probably weren't aware of the grant opportunity. Is that something that they could explore? So just to think about other opportunities or other ways that would not impact our budget as negatively. See how other communities that do it well, if it's possible. It may not be possible for us to continue this period.
yes, Jason.
So I would like to approach this a different way. I think the board has decided, and we have decided not to fund it. It's not part of the budget. I say we continue down that path unless some compelling argument is made. We've been through our budgeting cycle. It's not in there. And if we wanted it to be in there, it would have been in there.
Real hard for you to nail down, for me to nail you down, yes. I don't know where this hand raising thing came from, but
Because
Happy New Year.
go ahead.
I guess one alternative could be that if it is a priority of the board and the community, it could be part of some town department. Now, which department that is, I don't know, but that makes things a little bit easier as far as appropriating money, not to one board or committee over another, but for an action that is overseen by a town department. I don't know who would take that on. I'm certain that it's not in the town administrator's office. That would be the recycling center, so I don't know, but it doesn't mean it has to go away forever. And in that case, it would be an operational expense.
Okay.
Do we want to discuss this at the next meeting, or think about it, or do you want to come to some conclusions?
I think we should probably, we've now discussed it in 2 meetings, I think we should probably just come to a conclusion.
I think Kate's suggestion of looking at a model that may be included in a department is a good one.
Okay. So what are you suggesting? Why don't we follow Kate's lead?
I know she's, yes, that would be great. Kate, do you know what your lead was?
Well, I suppose we'll have to
You
find,
don't have to etch it in stone tonight,
Where
I'm
it
just
may
saying follow your
fit.
lead on how best to handle it.
yeah, it would, see where it may fit, have some discussions with staff, and then increase that department's appropriation for whatever by a corresponding amount.
I don't think we're asking you to come up with the solution tonight, we're just
That
gonna
would be
follow
my
your.
general thought.
Okay. Next item, decam property. Anything further on that this meeting? If not, we can-
No, just
Okay.
that I have a call set up with with the DCAM liaison for later in this week.
Sounds good. All right, you had a comment before we adjourn that you wanted to talk about the warrant article.
I did. Most people know the warrant article well, in and out. And it's a single article, so that's easy. One of the things that I thought was somewhat helpful, but not well attended, we could do, was our Q&A. I don't know if we have, I thought that having another Q&A session may help, because we signed, or the MOU was signed at the last town meeting. A lot of people referred to that, back to this article. We're voting on the article. The MOU is now published, MOA, it is now open to everybody. People haven't had an opportunity to ask it, so if we had a forum ahead of this,
Right.
that it may give people the opportunity to have a quicker town meeting, which is our mutual.
So my question then to you is,
Priority.
so is the question and answer session on the MOA or on the warrant article?
I would do it on both, because I believe that they're coupled. A lot of people's
Because the last one we
Understand
did it specifically on explaining the warrant
Right,
articles.
and I think that that was
individually.
helpful. For example, was that little piece of property that came out, that little piece of green included
Sure.
or not? And it is, so people had a greater understanding. We talked things through, and since this would be our second time through, I think it probably might be even better. I also think we need to include the MOU, MOA, because there's a lot of discussions. I personally have a lot of concerns about it, but it is, as you say, it's not going to, I believe you've been quoted saying that it is not going to change. It is,
No.
it is what it is.
Yes.
So, so
I
people
see.
can understand it. So that was a suggestion.
I would be against a Q&A session. So as the chair of the ad hoc MOA committee, I have not had one question from anybody about the MOA itself. I don't even know if we had any before the meeting, after it was signed. 0 questions to me. So I would disagree with Ms. Turner that residents have not had an opportunity. They've had a considerable amount of opportunity to ask questions, and they've chosen not to. If there are questions, please send them out. We'll do our best to get them answered. But I don't see any appetite from residents asking any questions.
So my apprehension about it is, I was a huge proponent for doing the forum the way we did it, was because we heard from townspeople after town meeting that it'd be great to have an understanding of the exact warrant articles that are going to be considered at town meeting. This one has, perhaps Sterling-Lancaster TV can re-air the part of the forum where we discussed the exact same article at the last time. I feel like we'll muddy the waters and confuse voters if we have a conversation, and by the way, set a bad precedent for future town meeting information forums if we make it about anything other than just the articles on the ballot. Because a lot of folks may think it's about the MOA in their mind, that that's what they want to discuss. A bunch of other folks might have another thing that they think is at the core of it all and may want to take a conversation in that direction, and it muddies the water what those informational forums are supposed to be about. So that's my concern. We've had, in essence, an informational forum and Q&A about this article, because this article was Article 4 at the last town meeting. So I would encourage folks, if they have questions about this article, Article 1 for January 28th, that they go to the archives online and find the information session, which was November 3rd, I believe, if memory serves.
Oh, good memory.
November 3rd of 2022, where we discussed this article. It was again called 4 then, it's called 1 now. And if you have any questions, they hopefully will be answered then. Otherwise, you can reach out to any one of your duly elected officials sitting at this table.
Well, for example, I have had a lot of questions, surprised you haven't, Jason, but is things like, as you said, these articles stand alone. We're voting on 4 or 3 or whatever it's.
Just before I let you continue, one point I would like to make about these articles is this is about a rezoning
Yes.
and not about a development. So
Right.
it's about whether or not we rezone this piece of land. And so questions I get, which are some, not many, I agree with Jason, I don't get that many, are about the development and not about the article, which is about a rezoning of
Right.
a piece of land.
So the MOU or MOA speaks more specifically to the development.
Right.
This is strictly that.
Right.
But people, for example, thought that the Article 3, as I recall, and Article 4, which were standalone articles, zoning articles, they had nothing to do with one another legally. But because of the MOA, they felt that they were interrelated.
There are two different ways.
Yeah. So, so there was, I think that there is some confusion, but if we want to do it.
Well, that's why I want to encourage folks I want to clarify it, that this is about
Zone.
a rezone of a parcel of land from residential to enterprise, or to, well, you can read in the EZ zone, rezoning, and not about any individual development.
Correct.
And so I don't want to confuse folks by discussing it in any other terms, but. Anything else anyone wants to talk about? Chief, you've been patient. Do you have anything? You ready for a safe and secure 2023 from the town of
Thank you for
Lancaster?
coming.
Good, thank you. We hope so too. With that, Kate, anything more? With that, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
Please, God, is there any discussion on the motion to adjourn? None? All those in favor?
Do it.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned. Thanks, everybody. Have a nice day.